Heartwarming secrets revealed. The amazing bond between a maid and a billionaire's father. In the heart of Ohio, where the streets pulsed with enthusiasm but also whispered struggles, Sarah slammed the dust rag against the mahogany table, lost momentarily in her thoughts. A distant life was unfolding around her, one filled with opulence, laughter, and closures she could only dream of. As she polished the deep grain of the wood, her heart ached for her son, Max, who often asked innocent questions about the grandeur that surrounded them. "Mom," he'd say, his bright eyes sparkling with curiosity, "will I ever be rich like that?" It twisted her gut to confront the reality of their struggles. Every day Sarah navigated the sprawling estate of Henry Caldwell, the reclusive billionaire with a past thick with family ties that had unraveled. She saw how the weight of his lost dreams mirrored the weight of her own aspirations as a dedicated single mother. It was a painful irony. The halls adorned with lavish decor starkly contrasted the narrow confines of their modest apartment. Yet, her resolve remained strong. "We're not defined by our earnings, Max," she'd reassure him, believing those words even as they hung heavy in the air. Pride surged in her chest. They were survivors, anchored by hard work and integrity. But sometimes she felt like she was losing him to the fantasies of wealth. One fateful afternoon at a town hall meeting, the atmosphere crackled with tension as bread and butter arguments erupted over rising taxes on the wealthy. Sarah sensed the community's disdain targeting Henry. Fuel surged in her veins. She couldn't let bias overshadow humanity. Standing tall amid the chaos, she raised her voice. "Henry Caldwell might be rich, but he has feelings just like us." Gasps echoed throughout the room. Silence hung heavy. That act of courage forged an unexpected bridge amid the class divide. Henry's eyes locked with hers, his shadowed past met her fighting spirit. They exchanged stories, lighting up the darkness. Sarah spoke of the sacrifices she made for Max, feeling his right arm wrap around her shoulder. Henry, for the first time in forever, spoke of the regrets gnawing at him like a relentless wave. His son, estranged and buried under the weight of financial obligations, an emotional chasm that yearned for closure. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when it seemed they might finally conquer this gaping class gulf, tragedy unleashed its cruel grip on the community. A local accident rocked the neighborhood, pulling Henry and Sarah closer than she ever imagined. In those moments, grief tethered them together, and their connection evolved into a beacon of hope and healing amid chaos. But within their newfound alliance lay daunting shadows. Could Sarah's promise of resilience withstand the weight of societal judgment? Would Henry dare face the ghosts of his ambitions to grasp authenticity once more? As whispered truths lingered in the air, both their futures rested delicately in the balance. The answer to these unasked questions whispered in the silence. Was it enough to redefine their lives and the community they cherished? Days turned into weeks after the accidents rattled the neighborhood, leaving a sense of vulnerability hanging thick in the air. Sarah carried the burden of her community's grief just as much as her own. Each dawn, as she walked through the ornate hallways of the Caldwell estate, she felt the weight of sadness wrap around her, drawing her into a world she had fought to understand. Henry, too, seemed transformed. His laughter had dimmed, replaced by a thoughtful silence that echoed through the grand rooms. During their shared moments, they could talk about the past, but now there were miles between them filled with unspoken fears and fresh vulnerabilities. One calm evening, Sarah found herself alone in the kitchen, the aroma of simmering tomato sauce filling the air. She absent-mindedly stirred the pot, her thoughts drifting to Max. Would she be able to keep his spirit bright amid the encroaching shadows? Max burst into the kitchen, his laughter clearing away some of the heaviness in the air. "Mom, do you think Mr. Caldwell will be at the park tomorrow?" he asked, his excitement radiating. I think so, Sarah replied, her own heart catching at the thought. The park had become a gathering place for the community to remember, to support each other. And it was where Sarah and Henry had begun to forge a real friendship amid the rubble left behind by their respective lives. The next day, dressed in a soft blue sundress that Max insisted she wear, Sarah felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. It was a community potluck, a chance to heal through shared meals and laughter. As they arrived, she spotted Henry standing near the punch bowl, looking lost in thought. Sarah, he exclaimed, snapping to attention as she approached. His eyes searched her face, as if trying to read the layers of her heart. I'm glad you came. His smile was hesitant but genuine, breaking through the cloud that had settled around him as they mingled. Their conversations were peppered with nervous laughter and meaningful pauses. Max weaved effortlessly between adults, soaking in stories and sharing his endless energy, reminding everyone of the joy that still lurked in the corners of their lives. Sarah watched him with a surge of pride, but as her gaze shifted to Henry, an unexpected wave of worry washed over her. Deep down, she knew the bond they were forming was delicate. Later, amidst the sounds of children playing, Sarah caught Henry's gaze again. He seemed entranced, watching Max laugh and run. You know, he said softly, your son has a light that brings people together, even in dark times. Just like you, she replied instinctively, her voice low. I think you bring comfort to those around you. You've been through a lot, Henry, but you still stand strong. Henry's eyes flickered with gratitude. Strength is overrated when one feels haunted by the past, he murmured, glancing down as shadows crossed his face. Facing ghosts is what makes us real. Connects us, Sarah said, her courage surprising even her. At that moment, she recognized the depth of their connection and wondered if they might discover something deeper than healing, something transformative that could challenge the very fabric of their lives. But just then, an argument erupted nearby, pulling them both back to the raw realities of community tensions. Voices rose, echoing the old grievances about wealth and class. Sarah felt a weight constricting her chest as she turned to Henry, uncertainty flashing in her eyes. Could you stand beside me? She asked, a plea hidden in her tone. Would he be ready to face the turmoil? In that instant, she felt the formidable challenge ahead. Could they intertwine their fates for the greater good of the community? As tensions simmered and questions hung in the air, Sarah braced herself. What if standing together meant wielding the power to change everything? The moment hung thick with tension, a collective unease settling over the gathering. Sarah could feel Henry's hesitation, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. She held her breath, her heart racing, desperately hoping he would take her side. As if sensing the stakes, Henry shifted from his contemplative stance. Of course, he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing around them. It was a small victory, but it brought warmth to her chest. Together, they stepped toward the cluster of raised voices. Look at them, pushing us out of our own community. A woman shouted, her face flushed with anger. Others murmured their agreement, eyes darting between the affluent newcomers and their own families struggling to make ends meet. Feeling the weight of their collective pain, Sarah took a deep breath. She felt the grounding presence of Henry beside her. At that moment, an unexpected wave of determination surged within her. Let us hear each other out, she called, raising her voice. We're all hurting in some way. Maybe we can start by listening first. The group quieted, startled by her interruption. Whispers circled around her, the resentment palpable, but something in her tone commanded attention. Sarah squared her shoulders, her heart pounding. We are not enemies. We're neighbors. We need to support each other through this. Henry shifted closer, his supportive presence adding appeal to her words. We have to find common ground. The past may be heavy, but our future can be lighter if we're willing to work together. His gaze flickered to Sarah, an unspoken understanding passing between them as murmurs of disagreement mingled with hesitant nods. Sarah felt a spark ignite within her, a sense of unity she had longed for. Was this the turning point? Could they reshape their community's narrative? An elderly man finally spoke up, his voice gravelly, but filled with conviction. Then let us start with the potluck. No one should feel unwelcome at their own table. He gestured toward the picnic spread, an invitation to set aside differences and share a meal. The mood shifted, as if the atmosphere had lightened a notch. Sarah saw glimmers of hope as people began to step forward, bringing plates filled with their home-cooked recipes. Laughter began to mingle with the earlier tension, creating the kind of warmth that wrapped around them like a blanket. But not everyone was ready to surrender so easily. Sarah noticed a small group lingering at the fringes, frowning and whispering among themselves, their arms crossed. A chill ran down her spine. She could feel unresolved concerns simmering just beneath the surface. Would they find unity, or was this merely a temporary truce? Just when she thought the tension might dissolve completely, a figure emerged from the crowd, a man with a stern face and a sharp voice. "What makes you think this will change anything?" he challenged them. "You think sharing a meal will erase years of resentment?" The joy in the air dissipated like steam in the wind. Discomfort settled in as all eyes turned to see how Henry and Sarah would respond. That single question sliced through the moment, leaving uncertainty hanging heavy. Would they rise to the occasion and answer the challenge, or would fear hold them back? Sarah glanced at Henry, the air thick with expectation. Her heart raced, unsure of what would come next. Could they move beyond just talk, or was the real struggle still yet to come? In that pregnant pause, the stakes suddenly felt much higher. It was more than just about healing. It was about proving that change was possible. What would they say? More importantly, how would they confront the ghosts of the past? Henry felt a surge of heat rise to his face as he met the sharp gaze of the man who had challenged them. Fighting against the instinct to shrink back, he straightened his back and took a deep breath, drawing strength from Sarah's presence at his side. She looked at him, eyes wide with a mix of hope and anxiety. This was their moment. He stepped forward, his voice steady but slightly raised so everyone could hear. "It's true. A single meal can't erase the past. We've all felt pain and loss, but I assent that why we're standing here today. To find a new way forward?" The man's frown deepened, but Henry pressed on, encouraged by the hopeful glimmers he saw around him. "We're here because we care about this place, each other, and the future of our community. We need to understand each other's struggles to build something better. What we're offering today is just a start, but it's an important one." As he spoke, murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the crowd. Some began to nod, their arms slowly uncrossing. Sarah's heart leapt, hoping his words were piercing through the clouds of discontent. Even if just a little. "Maybe the past will never truly disappear," Sarah called out, her voice rising to join Henry's. "But that doesn't mean we can't work toward creating new memories, new traditions that include everyone." Just then, a woman from the edge of the group, a schoolteacher Sarah recognized, spoke up, her voice hesitant but insistent. "I've seen families torn apart because they feel unheard. We can change that. If we sit together today, we take the first step. We may be different, but our children go to the same school. Isn't that something to hold on to?" The words seemed to catch like fire, the flicker of hope transforming into flickers of light. New voices joined in. One by one, some spoke of shared joys, others of painful memories, and how they never wanted their children to feel as they had. Every story added a layer of connection, softening the edges of hardened hearts. But the man who had initially challenged them remained stubborn, arms crossed tighter than ever. "Words mean nothing if there's no action behind them," he said, his tone still icy. "Anyone can say what they want. It's what people do that counts." There was a pause as Henry looked to Sarah. She met his eye, and for a brief moment, they shared an unspoken agreement. It was time to shift their focus to the future, to show their commitment, not just in words. "Then let us show it," Sarah said boldly. "Let us make this potluck an ongoing tradition, starting a new chapter where we come together regularly. We can plan events that invite everyone, activities for our kids, fundraisers for local needs. Action steps, if you will. But we need everyone's buy-in to make this work." Henry felt a rush of excitement surge through him, the energy in the air shifting again, this time toward momentum. The idea hung in the space between them, And slowly, more people began to murmur in agreement, some smiling and nodding. The man's demeanor softened, just a bit, but doubt still lingered in his eyes. And what if it doesn't work? What if more divides us than unites us? Sarah smiled kindly, a genuine warmth that reached out. Then we'll adapt. We've faced struggles before so many challenges. But healing is a journey we can take together. Isn't it worth trying, at least? The atmosphere buzzed as the crowd processed her words. The warmth was slowly returning, but uncertainty still flickered around the edges. Henry felt the moment settle. It could erupt into argument again or blossom into something beautiful. All of them could feel it hanging in the air, a choice that would mark a turning point. Whether a fragile truce or a strong foundation for change, one thing was clear: if they made it through today, it would be a start, and that alone was worth fighting for. He glanced back at the man. What do you say? Will you join us in this journey? With all eyes pinned on him, the air grew taut, the question hanging like a ripe fruit just waiting to fall. Could they really move forward from conflict to collaboration? And would everyone be willing to step in? The moment lingered with an uncomfortable urgency, as each heartbeat became a connection waiting to happen. The man's gaze flickered as he considered Henry's question, a wave of tension rising among the crowd. It felt like every person was holding their breath, waiting for a response that could either bring them together or send them spiraling apart once more. Slowly, a smile broke through his hardened expression, a cautious, almost reluctant smile. "All right," he said, his voice softer now, the edges of his certainty dissolving. "I'll give it a shot. But words need to become actions, and actions need to bring results." A ripple of applause erupted, almost breaking the dam, and slowly others joined in, the sound swelling into an overwhelming cheer. Henry felt his heart race, each beat echoing the hopes of those around him. There, in the midst of something fragile yet beautiful, lay the beginnings of a transformation. "Thank you," Sarah called, her voice trembling with excitement. "Let us get to work, then. We need your ideas and energy." Real collaboration means bringing everyone to the table, literally and figuratively. The man nodded again, arms finally uncrossing as he turned to face the crowd, his body language easing. "We can't keep ignoring the problems. If we do this together, we might find a way to heal as a community." A chorus of voices erupted affirmatively, each one coloring the atmosphere with vibrant messages of hope. Children at the fringes of the gathering peeked into the circle, sensing the shift, drawn by laughter and chatter, unified rather than divided as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting golden light over the gathering. Henry and Sarah shared a look that said everything. They had taken a chance, risking their voices for something they believed in, and it was paying off. "Let us start planning our next potluck," Sarah suggested, her eyes flashing with determination. "We can create a schedule that combines fun activities, opportunities for kids and adults alike to bond. Maybe we even set up community service days?" Henry felt a swell of pride as he watched her inspire others to participate. She had a way of lighting a fire under everyone around her, and now it was infectious. The group began tossing around ideas, laughter punctuating their conversations. Someone proposed a community garden, another mentioned a sports day, and yet another brought up a sharing stories night, a perfect way to blend backgrounds and create understanding. Then, a voice from the edge spoke up again, a man Henry recognized as a local mechanic. "We could also set up a skill swap, help each other out with lessons and trades, a way to truly get involved." The crowd cheered louder, voices overlapping with excitement. Every suggestion they made acted as a thread, weaving them tighter together, as if an invisible force was pulling them toward unity. Finally, they reached a consensus to meet next week at the same spot, a commitment etched in optimistic hands and smiling faces. Yet just as the weight of progress seemed to settle like a warm blanket, a shadow fell over their gathering. The man who had opened the conversation looked uneasy again, almost as if the questions looming in his mind were catching up with him. "What about those who want to join us?" he asked quietly, an unfamiliar strain threading through his voice. "What if this is all just wishful thinking?" That question hung heavy in the air, brimming with uncertainty. As laughter faded into pensive silence, the crowd settled into introspective murmurs, grappling with the reality of potential resistance. Would their brave step toward unity hold if others remained skeptical or worse, resistant? Henry's heart raced again, knowing that they had to address the fear, to invite everyone, yet at the same time, he felt that spark of hope flicker in his chest. They weren't just fighting to bring themselves together. They were reaching out, hoping to touch those still skeptical, reinforcing the bridge they had just begun to build. And there, at that crucial pivot, as countless eyes turned to question the next move, Henry's breath caught, for beneath the uncertainty lay an enormous potential for something extraordinary. How could they continue to push through, especially when the road ahead was still so uncertain? The journey wasn't over yet, far from it, just as new challenges were rising like dawn over the horizon. The real test lay just ahead. Would they become the community they dreamed of, or would the fractures deepen once more? Henry's thoughts raced as the silence wrapped around the group like a thick fog. The man's question lingered, echoing in his mind, casting a shadow over the vibrant discussions. Would they really be able to convince everyone that unity was possible? How could they bridge the gaps of doubt that seemed to seep into their hopes? Okay, people. Sarah's voice cut through the heaviness, vibrant and full of energy. Let us not let fear dictate our journey. Each one of us has a role to play. We need to share our vision and listen, even to those who doubt. Her words ignited a flicker of courage in Henry's chest. The crowd began to murmur again, but this time, it felt different. Instead of uncertainty, there was a sense of resolve. A young woman raised her hand, all eagerness and boldness. What if we set up a community meeting? A space where anyone can come and voice their concerns? Let us hear from those who might feel left out. Henry felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. That was the spirit they needed, a proactive solution. Exactly. We can create a safe environment for dialogue. Maybe we can bring in some local leaders to help facilitate things? He suggested, and the nods of agreement were immediate. The man who had posed the initial question softened, a hint of reassurance returning to his face. That sounds great, but will those who doubt even show up? That's the first step, Sarah replied, determination blazing in her eyes. We can't make them join us, but we can extend our hand and show we care. If they see our efforts, they might just feel inspired to participate. Excited chatter resumed, the path forward illuminated by new ideas. A grandmother chimed in, her voice warm and steady. Let us promise to listen. We might find out that the struggles of the community run deeper than we thought. Henry's heart swelled as he watched the group reinvigorate, energy flowing among them like electricity in the air. It wasn't just about creating gatherings. It was about healing the wounds that had festered too long. Together, they began exchanging tips on how to reach out and share information, tapping into social media and even organizing flyers as they started to craft their message. A brief moment of laughter shattered the tensions, for a child had on a large straw hat, twirling and pretending to be the mayor of the imaginary town they were creating. It was infectious. Laughter sparkled like morning dew, rejuvenating their spirits. With renewed purpose, the group decided to make their first community meeting an event. Music would fill the air, and food would be shared along with stories. Henry felt a sense of belonging that he hadn't experienced in years. This was more than just a response to doubts. It was a genuine effort to foster understanding and compassion, a true testament to human connection. But just as plans solidified, the air grew dense again. An abrupt shout came from the edge of the crowd. What if it's never enough? What if they reject us? A tall man stood there, arms crossed defiantly. His words sliced through the air, sparking tension. Henry turned to face him, heart racing. He recognized this voice. It belonged to someone who had been hurt deeply by past experiences, someone entrenched in distrust. Those fears are valid, Henry replied calmly, needing to break through the defenses. But if we don't try, we'll never know the possibilities. This is our chance to prove that we can rise together. Are we willing to take that risk? The crowd fell silent, eyes darting between Henry and the man. Moments stretched as doubt cast a shadow again. Would they stay limited by fear, or take a leap into the uncertain. As Henry waited for a response, he felt the air thicken with anticipation. Would this community turn into one of hope, or would the fractures deepen once more? Just then, he caught a glimpse of Sarah, her determination unwavering. He knew they needed each other now more than ever. The tension remained, heavy yet electric, each person holding their breath, as the future of their community hung in the balance. What would happen next? Would they find the courage to unite, or would they remain divided? The answer was just within reach, and the moment of truth was fast approaching. The moment stretched, silence hanging heavily as eyes flicked between Henry and the tall man. The energy shifted like a static charge before a storm. Henry's heart pounded, but he held his ground, hoping to unlock the wall of doubt. "Look," he started, trying to keep his voice steady. "I know that trust doesn't come easy. We've all faced disappointment before, but this is our opportunity to build something better. Together." A ripple of murmurs followed his words. The weight of the tall man's stare softened, though uncertainty still lingered. "And how do I know this won't end in another failure?" he finally asked, his voice tinged with pain. "Because we're beginning with honesty," Sarah replied, stepping forward with a kind of warmth that seemed to break the tension a notch. "We're not just looking for answers. We're seeking each other. Every voice matters. Every story matters. Your story matters." A subtle shift occurred among the crowd, nods and small affirmations stirring in the air, as some began to share their own experiences. A mother spoke up about the struggles of juggling work and caring for her kids, her voice cracking with emotion as she described the loneliness that engulfed her. "I felt so cut off," she said, wiping her eyes. "If we can just talk, maybe we can find a way to help each other." Henry watched, eyes wide, as others began to join the conversation. Each shared pain was a thread woven into a larger tapestry of their community. Fears melted into recognition, building an unexpected bridge over the gaps. Just like that, the daunting question of unity seemed less like a dream and more like a shared goal. "Look at that." Henry's smile broke through as he looked at Sarah, who mirrored his enthusiasm with sparkling eyes. The corners of his mouth lifted. "Let us keep riding this momentum. We can schedule more meetings, work on partnerships, maybe even workshops." "Yes," someone shouted, excitement bubbling through the group. "We should also create a task force. Different teams can tackle different issues." The thought sent ripples of excitement through the crowd. Ideas began to flow, sparking creativity in unexpected ways. A group formed to handle logistics, another to reach out to local businesses for support. Yet just as the energy peaked, a shadow flickered upon their joy when a man stepped forward, this time with gritted teeth, frustration etched across his brow. "But you're forgetting something. What if these efforts go unnoticed? What if we put in all this work and nothing changes?" The air turned electric with uncertainty once more. Henry felt the weight of those words. They were legitimate fears, fears rooted in human vulnerability. "What if it seems like nothing changes?" he pondered aloud. "But what if it does? What if we can't see the progress but others can? We have to trust that every step taken is meaningful." Henry's voice shook with passion, his own belief in the process spilling over. "Every conversation strengthens us even if it's just by an inch. In time, those inches will add up to something great." The murmurs grew, interchanging glimmers of hope and skepticism. An elderly man raised his hand, his tone reflective. "The strongest roots grow from those inches. So let us nurture them. I'm willing to help." Gradually, voices joined the chorus, and Henry saw eyes brighten with understanding. Walls were crumbling, though some still held strong. But as smiles flickered and plans blossomed, Henry also felt an unsettling apprehension tugging in his gut. What if their efforts faded into oblivion? What if the fears were too big to overcome, and disillusion would set in again? Just then, as the crowd cheered and high-fived, the tall man who had raised concerns earlier took a step back, watching as the group merged into laughter and excitement. Looking at him, Henry realized something crucial. A tight knot of humanity began to unravel. "Maybe," the tall man murmured, almost to himself, "maybe there's a chance." Could this fragile connection hold under future pressures? The air buzzed with anticipation, as Henry felt the thrill of possibility and the weight of uncertainty linking arm in arm, straining toward a future yet unwritten. But what would happen when the challenges appeared? Would they still fight for connection when the road got tough? As the event drew nearer, whispers of doubt began to swirl again. Would the newly formed bonds hold strong? The night wound down, the energy slowly drifting like smoke from a bonfire. People began to disperse, yet a small group lingered, exchanging phone numbers and promises to meet again. Henry felt a rush of hope, watching the spark in their eyes, but underneath, a tightness gripped his chest. The moment had felt electric, but would it last? Let us not lose this, he urged as they wrapped up. The next meeting should be soon. We can organize everything now while we're still excited. Totally, Sarah agreed, her voice ringing with sincerity. Let us set goals tonight. No time like the present, right? They gathered in a tight circle, scribbling ideas down on scraps of paper. It felt like magic, each suggestion lighting up the group like fireflies on a summer night. But deep within, Henry's unease festered. His thoughts weren't just about logistics. They were wrapped around the tall man, whose face had shifted from skepticism to something else entirely. Hope? Longing? What if he doesn't show up next time? Henry thought, anxiety creeping in. What if he thinks this is just another waste of time? Just then he felt a warm touch on his arm. You okay? Sarah's gentle tone broke his spiral of worry. Yeah, just, wondering if everyone's really in this for the long haul, he replied, forcing a smile. She nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. You'll see. Takes time, but we'll show them it's possible. More people joined their huddle, and various voices chimed in, suggesting everything from potlucks to movie nights, ideas sparkling with laughter. Henry found himself laughing too, but he still couldn't shake the worry that lay like a stone in his heart. As the meeting drew to a close, the crowd thinned, and the sky deepened into a cloak of navy dotted with stars. Henry stepped aside, leaning against a tree to breathe in the night's air. Then he noticed the tall man, standing near the edge of the gathering. He looked thoughtful, detached, as if still processing the day's events. Hey, Henry called, taking a step toward him. I wanted to check in. Everything all right? The tall man hesitated before nodding slowly. It's a lot to take in, he admitted. But maybe it's time to try again. Yeah, it is, Henry replied, a spark of excitement rushing through him. You'd be a crucial part of this. Part? I'm not sure I belong. I've watched communities fail before. His voice trailed off, distant and troubled. Henry hesitated. What if this is what you've been waiting for? A chance to help shape something? You could be part of the leading force. A glimmer of hope flickered in the tall man's eyes, but just as quickly, it dimmed again. And what if it all crumbles to dust? What if I'm not enough? Henry stepped closer, feeling the intensity of the moment. Then we'll be there together. You're not alone anymore. He felt that tension again between hope and uncertainty. It manifested almost physically, swirling around them in the cool night air. As the tall man looked at him, a moment passed. But would he really take that step forward? Let us see each other again, the man finally said, a hint of resolve in his voice. Maybe we can keep this conversation going. Henry nodded, feeling a thread tethering them both. The fate of their efforts hung precariously above them. But then, the sound of distant laughter broke the moment, pulling their attention back to the group. It was a reminder that, despite their doubts, a communal spirit was unfolding, and resilience was brewing like a warm cup of coffee on a chilly morning. As they turned back, determined to carry on, Henry couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was just beginning. What hurdles awaited them in their quest for connection? Would they face those together, or would it be every person for themselves? And with that thought, he felt a chill run down his spine, an undeniable truth lurking in the darkness. Would they rise together to meet the challenges ahead, or would they crumble under the weight of expectations? The next meeting lingered like an unfinished melody, a promise filled with hope, yet shadowed by uncertainty. Henry woke to the sound of rain tapping softly against his window. The rhythmic patter created a cocoon of solitude around him. He lay there staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling in his mind like the storm outside. The tall man's face flickered in his memory, etched with uncertainty yet yearning. He rose, surprising himself with a sense of urgency. Today was important. They needed direction, a spark to ignite their plans. He threw on a hoodie, grabbed his umbrella, and stepped out into the crisp, rain-drenched air as he navigated the slick sidewalks. He remembered Sarah's words from the night before. It takes time, but we'll show them it's possible. That made him grin, pushing aside the anxiety that tried to creep back in. Arriving at the cafe that would serve as their meeting point, he glanced out at the drenched streets. Would people come? The inside of the cafe was warm and bustling, the rich aroma of coffee swirling around him as patrons enjoyed their drinks. He liked the energy of this place, how it buzzed with conversations. After ordering a latte, he chose a corner table, setting up for their meeting. He looked around, seeing familiar faces trickle in. First, it was Sarah, her smile brightening the space. "Hey, you made it early," she said, shaking off her umbrella. "Yeah, felt like we needed a little boost today," he replied, gesturing to the table. They began discussing the agenda, aiming to build a structure that would hold everyone accountable. Slowly, more members of their group filtered in. The atmosphere lightened as they shared laughter and ideas, sharing enthusiasm that filled the room like warmth from a fireplace. Then the tall man walked in. His wet hair glistened, and he was slightly out of breath. The moment their eyes met, it felt like time slowed. Henry's heart raced. Would he join in, or would he turn away again? As if sensing the tension, the tall man took a deep breath and approached their group. "Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late," he said, voice steady but eyes betraying a hint of nervousness. "I figured I could give this another shot." A wave of relief washed over Henry, mixing with burgeoning hope. "We're glad you're here," he replied earnestly, gesturing for him to sit as the meeting progressed. They dove into discussions about community projects, social events, and outreach ideas. The tall man contributed insights, his confidence building as he engaged with the group. Henry watched, heart swelling with admiration. Maybe this was the turning point they all needed. But then, amid his high spirits, a flicker of doubt bubbled up. Is this just a moment? He wondered. Will he really stick around, or will he slip out when the going gets tough? As the conversation transitioned into brainstorming plans for a community cookout, the tall man spoke again. "I've been thinking, what if we also have a space for sharing stories? I mean, the struggles too. People bond over vulnerabilities." That idea hung in the air, powerful and raw. It struck a chord with everyone. Henry felt a shift as someone shared a past failure, and another opened up about feelings of isolation. Laughter morphed into heartfelt connections, deeper and more real. When the meeting concluded, Henry could barely contain his excitement. They had something special brewing here. Yet in the back of his mind loomed that lingering fear. Could they truly hold on to this newfound unity? As they all prepared to leave, Henry caught the tall man's eye again. "I'm really glad you came today," he said, heart on his sleeve. "Me too," the tall man replied, a spark of determination in his gaze. "Maybe we really can build this." Stepping into the rain-soaked streets, drenched in fresh energy and budding connection, Henry felt alive, but uncertainty still wrapped around him like the mist. They had a long journey ahead. What would training their courage in vulnerability look like? How would the group react when faced with silence or a daunting challenge? As those thoughts consumed him, the storm clouds seemed heavy above, but the promise of brighter skies was just around the corner. For the first time, he believed they could weather any storm together. Would they find the strength to support each other through the waves yet to come? The sun peeked from behind the clouds, casting a golden hue over the town as the day approached for the community cookout. Excitement buzzed through the air, a sense of anticipation that merged with the fragrance of summer flowers lining the streets. Henry stood before his porch, heart swelling with hope. This was it, the moment they all worked toward. As he arrived at the park, a familiar warmth washed over him. Banners adorned the trees, and tables overflowed with food, each dish a token of love and investment from the community. Sarah's laughter pierced the air like music. She was arranging the seating, her contagious energy inspiring everyone nearby. "Henry, look at all of this," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "Unbelievable," he replied, his heart racing with gratitude. Families began to gather, old friends reconnecting and new friendships sprouting. Children raced in circles, their joyous shouts blending harmoniously with clinking cutlery and soft chatter. Henry felt like he was witnessing the birth of something beautiful, a tapestry woven with each story, each laughter resonating with undeniable sincerity. Then, he saw the tall man again, James. He introduced himself at the last meeting, standing on the outskirts, looking nervous. Henry felt that familiar tug of concern. He didn't want James to retreat into the shadows, so he made his way over, smiling. "Hey man, ready for the festivities?" James nodded but looked uncertain. I worry it won't mean much." Henry placed a hand on his shoulder. "It means everything. You're here. You're part of this." Encouraged, James took a deep breath and squared his shoulders as the sun dipped lower. Sarah took charge of the crowd, guiding everyone to gather around for the sharing of stories. "Everyone has a voice," she began, warmth wrapping around her words. "Let us hear from each other, our victories, our lessons, our struggles." A hush fell over the group as stories unfolded. A mother shared her path as a single parent. A grandfather spoke of resilience through loss. Laughter ignited when a teenager recounted a hilarious mishap. Each narrative painted vivid strokes across the canvas of their collective experience, forging connections wrapped in empathy. Henry felt a swell of pride. This was what they had been working toward. "This is real. This is how we build unity," he thought, emotions welling in his throat. Then it was James's turn. He stepped forward, hesitating at first, but with a nod from Henry and a glance at the welcoming faces around him, he began. "I've been hurt. I've lost faith in communities. But standing here today, it feels different. I see hope." His voice trembled slightly but grew stronger as he pressed on. "Hope is worth pursuing, and I want to be part of that change." As he spoke, Henry saw something shift within the crowd. Faces softened, and encouragement flourished. "You're not alone," a voice called out. "When we let each other in, we foster connection," Sarah added, her eyes shimmering. With those words, a wave of applause erupted, weaving through every heart present a collective acknowledgement of vulnerability and courage. Joy radiated like sunshine, lifting Henry's spirit even higher. Later in the evening, as laughter bubbled over and the moon cast a silvery glow, the momentum of connection felt electric. They broke bread together. It was a moment where barriers tumbled down, replaced by a sense of belonging that wrapped everyone in warmth. Over the shared meal, Henry turned to Sarah, their hands brushing as they passed a dish. "Look at them, Sarah. Our community. This is what unity feels like." "Yeah," she breathed, a radiant smile lighting her face. "Trust is building. The wounds are healing." Somewhere in the crowd, a familiar voice piped up. An elderly woman with a soft charm spoke of starting a community garden. Someone else suggested an art festival highlighting local talent. Ideas flowed, laughter tumbled, and Henry realized that against all odds, they were becoming the neighbors they had always dreamed of being. As the night wound down and families began to depart, Henry and Sarah exchanged glances filled with promise. "This isn't the end, she mused. "It's just the beginning." "Absolutely," Henry nodded, energy bubbling within him. "We have to keep this going. Let us plan our next meeting, figure out how to keep this engagement alive. Not just surviving a flourishing community," she replied, eyes sparkling with hope. And as they watched people leave, smiling and filled with stories of their own, Henry felt a profound sense of peace settle in his heart. The bonds they forged today would be the foundation of tomorrow. Together, they could weather any storm ahead. So, as this chapter closed, Henry realized that real change was born not just from shared meals or events, but from the courage to reach out, connect, and heal together. A community was rising full of potential, woven with love and resilience. This was their moment, and it was only the beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible moments like this. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and keep the stories coming. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. It matters to us. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread this journey of connection far and wide.